morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the Weather Channel. You've tuned in just in time for Storm Watch. And of course, we will detail the threat for any storms today over the lower 48 and also give you the very latest on the tropics, our tropical update. We have a super typhoon to tell you about in the western Pacific. Super Typhoon Zeb is churning the waters. An immense storm it is, with winds of 173 miles an hour. Now, that is clearly one of the strongest storms we've ever seen, actually. You don't see these kind of storms in the Atlantic. This would be well in the Category 5 category, if you will, on the Saffir-Simpson scale, if it were in the Atlantic, a very strong hurricane. But it is a super typhoon. It's termed a typhoon because it's in the western Pacific. This is China, by the way, mainland China, Vietnam, the Philippines, Korea here, and Japan. And this is Zeb. You can clearly see the eye of the storm in the middle of the central dense overcast clouds. A very well organized system, and the eye is so small but so clear, and that's an indication that this system is very, very organized. A deadly super typhoon as it continues its northwesterly track at about 19 miles an hour. It is expected to get closer to the northernmost island of the Philippines, that is Luzon, right here, and the eye of the storm is expected to brush the northeastern coast of Luzon with devastation for sure, with winds again of 170 miles an hour. We've even had reports of wind gusts associated with Zeb up to 200 miles an hour. Now, as the eye of the storm brushes the northern Philippines here, it could weaken a little bit, but over the next 36 hours, it's still expected to approach Taiwan with devastation and very, very gusty winds, and then eventually be veered off toward the north and east, and perhaps brushing the southern shores here of Japan. But over the next 12 to 48 hours, we are definitely looking for this massive storm as it gets closer and closer to the northern Philippines. So if you have friends or family out in this area, then be advised that this is a very powerful and devastating super typhoon that will be approaching the area, and I'm sure this will make big news over the next 24 hours or so. We will keep you posted, the latest on Super Typhoon Zeb. What else is going on in the Pacific? Well, the eastern Pacific has been fairly quiet so far. We do have the thunderstorm activity along the intertropical convergence zone, but here a little more identifiable, a club of clouds. This is associated with a tropical depression. It's the 13th of the season in the eastern Pacific, TD13E. It is located 720 miles southwest of Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, the southern tip here of Mexico, and it's moving northwest at 5 miles an hour. It's expected to encounter cooler waters and continue on its weakening trend, but we'll keep you posted on this tropical depression. Again, it's the 13th of the season so far, and on average, we find about 16 storms in the eastern Atlantic, 9 of which could become hurricanes and 5 major hurricanes, but so far we are running tad below the norm in the eastern Pacific. Now, average Atlantic hurricane season. In the Atlantic, we typically only see 9 storms. So far, we've seen 12 tropical storms in the Atlantic basin, but we have no storms brewing in the Atlantic.
You could have a foggy commute this morning. We'll show you where the fog could be a problem, plus look at conditions nationwide ahead on Weather Center after your local forecast.
These folks are getting an actual free psychic reading, and you can too.
She told me that I was raised by my grandmother.
Which was?
True.
She knew I was seeing 2 people, not even tell her that.
You know, I'd be starting a new job this week.
And it's true? You are starting a new job?
On Monday morning.
She mentioned about a move to Europe, and that normally would have been outlandish, except for last week I accepted a position in Rome. So I'm moving to Europe.
He said that I was moving, changing addresses, going to Tallahassee.
morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Channel. I'm Marshall Cease. It's 10 minutes before the top of the hour. You're tuned to Storm Watch. We'll tell you where we expect some strong thunderstorms to develop this afternoon. But first, we have a full tropical briefing for you. John Hope is here to talk about a super typhoon in the Western Pacific. John?
Well, thank you, Marshall. And a super typhoon it is. You don't very often see any like this out there. This has now sustained winds. We're not talking about gusts, mind you, up to 180 miles an hour. And it's bearing down on the Philippines, headed right straight toward Luzon right now, although it is forecast to curve a little bit, but it's not going to curve quickly enough to miss the island altogether. As a matter of fact, the center of the eye right now is less than 150 miles from Luzon. I would point out, though, for you people that might have folks over there, say in Manila, that Manila is way down here to the south, so this is going to go well north of Manila, so they won't fare too badly there. Let me show you a different picture of that now. I'll show you what looks like on the colorized version where we colorize the tops, and it's got a classic eye. I don't have a visible picture I could show you. I wish I did. I saw we have one that I called up on the internet. It has an eye about 21 miles in diameter and moving right along about 15 miles an hour or so. So within 10 or 12 hours, the eye of this typhoon with 180 miles an hour sustained winds is going to be crossing the coast of the Philippines. So hope everybody is really battened down there. That's going to be in the night or along toward morning over there. Now let's go and show you what we have elsewhere in the Pacific, and we'll take you across the Pacific and show you that in the eastern Pacific off the coast of Mexico, we have a new storm out there. It's Tropical Storm K. Very tiny, but very well organized, and on the first advisory elevating this from a tropical depression to a tropical storm, the winds were classified as 70 miles an hour, almost a hurricane. To the east of that, while we have this picture up there, we have some disturbed weather, but no kind of organization. This is the latest statistics we have on that, 16.1, 118.7. And as we said, the winds are 70 miles an hour, moving very slowly toward the west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Well, on the Atlantic side, this is a climatology for October. Notice we have quite a concentration of October storms that have developed or might develop in the Northwest Caribbean. And you can see this on our dot chart here, where we have one dot representing the origins of each tropical storm or hurricane that developed between the 11th and the 20th of October, going all the way back to 1886. And you can see how they're concentrated there in the Caribbean. Having said that, though, in the Caribbean today, we don't see anything out there to worry about whatever. And I can illustrate why that is, I think, on the water vapor here, where we can kind of trace the cloud elements at high levels. And it's westerly winds all across the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico at upper levels, so no likelihood of any development there. Farther out, we have this one tropical wave we'll talk about in just a second that's coming into the Caribbean, but no sign of any development there. And a little cluster of clouds here and showers north of the Bahamas moving away. Down on the Pacific side, you can see it's pretty active down there. Now, this tropical wave that we have out here in the islands has brought showers all the way from Trinidad to Tobago up to, well, Antigua, but no sign of any development there. We have strong winds out of the southwest in that area. And out in the eastern Atlantic, no sign of any development there. One cluster of showers and thunder showers, but it's getting very late in the year to see anything develop out there. So that's the tropics. Now back to Marshall.
Thanks, John. Let's take a look at where we expect some thunderstorms perhaps to develop over the lower 48 states. We do expect some in South Florida. In fact, we do have a special marine advisory that has just been issued out near Marathon and Long Key. A waterspout has been sighted, so from Pigeon Key to Key West and then to Marathon, we do have a special marine advisory. Be aware of that. Thunderstorm in South Texas has led to some flooding in Kennedy County and in Willacy counties. They're down in the southern tip of the state around Harlingen, Texas, and no thunderstorms here in the northeast, but we expect a couple to develop, some general thunderstorms. Strongest thunderstorms today are likely in South Texas and in South Florida. We'll detail the current weather coming up in the northeast next.
The Pacific Northwest is just one of the places you'll need an umbrella today. Find out what other areas will see rain just ahead on Weather Center, following your local forecast.
I made this.
I made sense of my finances.